So the next lecture I'm gonna to talk about production and costs. Let's talk about production first. The goal of the firms is to maximize profits by minimize costs, given technological constraints. And the production function describe what is technically feasible for firms to produce. Firm converts inputs into outputs through the production process. Here, outputs are the goods and services produced by the firm, and inputs are capital and labor. Quantity equals to the function, and the inputs is capital and labor. L equals to labor, and K is capital. In the short run, at least one input is fixed. In the long run, all inputs are variable. It is a very important concept. Now, short run production. Recall that in the short run, at least one input is fixed. Suppose we have fixed capital and variable labor. The marginal product of labor is the change in the total output resulting from using an extra unit of labor holding other inputs constant. So, um, just like diminishing marginal cost, the marginal product of labor is also diminishing because as you hire more labor, as you hire more labor, each labor productivity just shrink um respect to your total profit. The marginal product of capital is the same thing. Okay. Now let's talk about long run production. Remember the short run production, we just need to calculate the MPL and MPK. But in the in the long run, we also have to the we have just like a demand and supply demand curve in different curve and the budget constraint curve. We also have isoquants curve. It's given a specific bundle of labor and capital. In the isoquants curve, you get the same profits, just like in different curves given two things, and in different curve, you gain the same utility. The slope of isoquant is a marginal rate of technical substitution, similar to MRS, right? That means, and the MRTS is varies along the isoquants. MRTS falls as labor increases. More labor, and you are going to unwilling to transfer your capital to labor because your labor is large. You have large amount of labors already. Isoquants exhibit diminishing marginal rates of technical substitution. MRTS is negative MPLO over MPK. Returns to scale. It's another topic. We have constant return scale, increasing returns to scale, and decreasing returns to scale. At that time, we need to discuss these three parts of things. So what's to know is understanding the inputs and outputs of production function, capital and labor. Identify the difference between long run and the short run production. Long run, in the long run, your capital, you can vary the capital, you can optimize the name. It's just a very different, and since you can optimize, they are not fixed. You have isoquants. Yeah, because in the short run you can just adjust your capital cost. So you don't you literally do not have the isoquant curve. Okay. The third is identify different cases of returns to scale. Constant increasing and decreasing is very easy. Calculate the marginal product of labor, marginal product of capital, just by differentiate them, and I think it is very easy for you guys. Graph isoquants, just like in different curves. It's concave, the concave downsloping curve, and see how its slope is the marginal rate of technical substitution. Calculate MRTS given production function. Okay, the next part is costs. Just like I already have said, we have fixed costs are the costs of inputs that can't be varied in a short run. In this, in this course, we usually assign capital as fixed cost, and we also have variable costs, are the cost of inputs that can be varied in the short run. In this course, we usually assign labor as variable costs. So the total cost is fixed cost and variable cost. The cost we use C to represent, and the fixed cost is FC. Variable cost is VC. The marginal costs are the change in cost for another unit of output. Just differentiate respect to the quantity. Yeah, because the marginal cost is delta C over delta Q. In the short run, margin cost is just a change of variable cost because you can't just adjust the fixed cost in the short run. Okay, now we going to the other part is average cost. The average cost of production per unit produced. It's basically your cost function divided by by Q, the quantity you produced. And just like average costs, we also have average variable costs and average fixed costs. So that's it. Graphically, marginal cost is constant upward slope. Average fixed cost is steadily declining. Because in the beginning, your entry barrier, you need to pay a lot of fixed cost of your capital. It's very high, but as time goes by, let's the cost is not it just be reply be not necessary as the first. Average variable cost is rising, but more slowly than marginal cost. Yeah, because marginal cost also contains fixed cost. Average total cost is first declining, then rising. Because in the beginning your fixed cost is very high, so the average cost is very high, but as you input more labor, you transfer your capital to labor more, and the marginal benefit of labor gives you that just shrink your marginal cost, so your total cost will decline. Um, Note that where the average costs are at minimum is where they cross the marginal costs. So at the point it's the most efficiency um quantity you should product. because your average cost is very low um and the next labor inputs just increase your average total cost. That's short one. And some costs are the costs that cannot be recovered through any change in production patterns. Sunk costs cannot be recovered and should not affect future production decisions. Now let's talk about long run costs. Recall that in the long run, all input costs are variable, so choice is over input mix to maximizing production efficiency or minimizing costs. Just like budget constraint line, we have ISO costs line. Is the combination of capital and labor that yield the same total level of costs. Equals to rent times capital plus wages times labor. Okay. So first choose economically efficient combination of inputs for a given level of outputs. Cost minimization is achieved when isoquant is tangent to isocost line. Yeah, just like we talked about the previous lesson. In the long run, we have isoquants. That is given the certain bundle, your profit is the same in that curve, just like in different curve. So uh also just like budget constraint curve, we have iso cost curve and how to optimize the bundle we should produce. That is, we need to find the MRTA as equals to wages over the rent because the wages of the rent is in the market is a ideal transformation ratio. So we want to achieve that. That means the marginal product of labor over wages should equals to marginal production productivity of capital over rents. Just so let's is utility of labor and the utility of capital is the same. So economically efficient points is where the less dollars spent on labor adds as much to output as the last dollar spent on capital. Expansion path traces cost minimizing combinations for all output levels. Economic and accounting profits. The accounting profits measure only cash inflows of revenues and outflows of costs. The economic profits also account for the opportunity costs that aren't necessarily paid in cash because yeah uh our opportunity costs not just the cash. To know, identify the definition of fixed cost, variable cost, and sunk cost. Know the difference between short-run and long-run production. In the short run, at least one input is fixed. In the long run, all inputs are variable. Explain why average costs are at a minimum when they cross the marginal cost curve. First, choose input combination to produce a given output at lowest cost. Derive different cost functions: total cost, fixed cost, variable cost, marginal cost, and average cost. Know the shape characteristics of AFC, VC, MC in a graph. Show graphically in the isoquant isocost diagram how to yield the cost minimizing. Okay. Now we for now it is production part. Next part I'm going to talk about the competition. Thank you for listening.